My name is Avery Collins, and I am 33 years old today. 4 months ago, my parents filed a petition in county court. They wanted a judge to declare me incompetent so they could control my life. They were not asking for help. They were asking for ownership. Picture a courtroom with harsh fluorescent lights and a faint buzz overhead. My father, Thomas Collins, sat beside an expensive attorney, back straight and jaw tight. It was the same posture he used at our dinner table for more than 30 years. My mother, Angela Collins, dabbed her eyes with a cloth handkerchief, performing grief on command. Across the aisle, their legal team watched me like a meal, confident and amused. They said I was immature, unstable, and unfit to manage my own affairs. They asked for my bank accounts, my car, my apartment, and every personal possession I owned. They described me like a cautionary tale, a lonely woman who could not function. They painted a picture where they were rescuers, and I was a problem to be contained. Listening to them, I felt my stomach turn, but I kept my face calm. I knew the most dangerous part was not their words. It was the way they said them. They spoke like they had rehearsed, like they expected the judge to nod. My parents did not do this because they loved me. They did it because they were desperate. They believed I was easy to overpower because I had always been the quiet one. They also believed I had nothing worth protecting because I never showed them what I built. They had no idea what I actually owned, and they had no idea how carefully I documented everything. While their attorney talked about control and guardianship, I looked at my parents and saw a familiar hunger. It was the same hunger that always appeared when money entered the room. And in that moment, I understood the real plan. They were not trying to save me. They were trying to take me. They did not just file papers. They built a script around me, and they performed it with confidence. Thomas Collins told the court I was isolated, reckless, and unable to make sound decisions. Angela Collins described me as fragile, confused, and easily influenced, and she cried at the right moments. Their attorney presented a folder of statements and called it concern, but it was really a map to my possessions. They claimed I could not hold a stable routine, and they implied I needed supervision, like I was a teenager, not a grown woman. They even submitted a so-called evaluation, written by a doctor who never met me. I sat there listening, feeling heat rise in my face, because the lies were detailed, not sloppy. That is what made them dangerous. They were asking for a conservatorship, and with it they wanted authority over my accounts, my keys, my phone, my mail, my home, and my choices. They spoke about safety, but the word they wanted was control. I watched the judge's eyes move from them to me, and I forced myself to breathe slowly. Anger would not help. Panic would not help. Only clarity would. I remembered every time my parents asked about my salary, every time they hinted I should share, every time they talked about what I owed them. I also remembered when they stopped calling for months, then suddenly returned with sweet voices, right after they learned I had a better job. That pattern was the only honest thing in the room. When the judge asked if I understood the petition, I said yes, clearly and calmly. I said I understood they were demanding my life in legal form. Thomas glared, because he wanted me small, and I sounded steady. Angela wiped her eyes again, but her gaze stayed sharp, measuring my reaction. I realized they expected fear, and instead they got a woman who could name what was happening. What my parents did not know was that my quiet life was not empty. I work in a field where records matter, and proof is a daily language. I learned early to keep copies, to save emails, to print confirmations, and to store receipts like they were shields. Years ago, I stopped sharing details with Thomas Collins and Angela Collins because they treated information like a key to a locked door. I built my savings quietly, invested carefully, and bought what I needed without asking for applause. I paid my rent on time, kept my credit clean, and handled my own appointments. I was not perfect, but I was competent, and competence has a paper trail. When their petition arrived, I did not collapse. I opened a folder. I read every line, every accusation, every demand, and I highlighted the parts that were provably false. I pulled phone logs that showed they could reach me at any time. I printed messages where they asked about money, and nothing else. I gathered bank statements, pay stubs, and letters that showed stability, not chaos. I also pulled one detail that made my stomach turn. Their petition listed possessions I never told them about. That meant they had been digging, watching, and guessing, trying to map my life like a target. I realized this was not sudden concern. It was a plan. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, laptop open, documents spread out, and I felt a cold calm settle in. If they wanted a courtroom, I would bring the truth in orderly stacks. I would not scream, and I would not beg. I would show the judge what competence looks like, because competence is not a feeling, it is evidence. The next morning, I called Samantha Price, an attorney known for standing firm under pressure. She listened without interrupting, then asked for the petition, the exhibits, and the timeline. Her voice was steady, and that steadiness felt like oxygen. She told me conservatorships are serious, and the court must see facts, not family drama. She also warned me that parents who file these cases often believe the title mother and father is enough to win. Samantha said we would respond quickly, and we would request an independent court investigation. She said I should not contact Thomas Collins or Angela Collins directly because every conversation can be twisted. Within a week, Samantha filed our response and asked the court to appoint an investigator. That investigator was Karen Holt. Karen met me in a neutral office, asked practical questions, and watched how I answered. She asked about my job, my bills, my routines, and my health, and I spoke plainly. Karen did not treat me like a child. She treated me like a person. She also asked why my parents were doing this now, and I told her the simplest truth. They were chasing control, and control usually follows money. Karen took notes, then asked for documents, and I handed her a clean packet. When Thomas learned there was an investigator, his tone changed fast. He called, left a voicemail, and tried to sound gentle, saying he only wanted to protect me. Angela followed with a message about love and family unity. I did not reply. Samantha listened to the voicemails and said their softness was a mask because they realized their lies would be tested. For the first time, I could feel the pressure shift. They were no longer performing for a silent daughter. They were facing a process, and a process does not care about their tears. Karen Holt did not only interview me, she investigated the story my parents tried to sell. She asked for details, then checked them. She looked at the petition language, compared it to my records, and noticed patterns that did not match concern. She asked why Thomas Collins and Angela Collins claimed I was unreachable, when my phone log showed consistent contact attempts and even recent messages from them. She asked why they described me as unable to manage finances when my bills were paid on time and my accounts were stable. Karen also asked about the so-called evaluation. Samantha Price requested the doctor credentials, and the response was vague. Karen wrote that down, because vagueness is often hiding something. The more Karen looked, the more she treated my parents' claims like suspects, not fact. That shift mattered, because the court listens to investigators. When Karen asked me about my relationship with my parents, I spoke carefully. I said they were charming when they wanted something, and cold when they did not. I said they demanded access to my life, then called it love. Karen nodded, like she had seen this pattern before. She asked one question that made my chest tighten. Did I believe they were in financial trouble? I said yes, because their timing was not random. My parents did not wake up and worry about my stability. They woke up and saw an opening. At the next hearing, their attorney repeated the same words: helpless, unstable, needs supervision. Then he listed what they wanted control over: my apartment, my car, my bank accounts, my investments, and everything in my name. Hearing it said out loud, in a courtroom, made people shift in their seats. It was not subtle. It sounded like a takeover. Thomas Collins tried to look noble, but his eyes kept flicking towards Samantha Price, like he was measuring the threat. Angela Collins kept crying, but her tears did not match her posture. The judge asked direct questions, and my parents' answers were slippery. They said they were worried, but they could not name a single real incident. They said I was irrational, but they had no medical records, only opinions. Samantha stood, and her voice was calm and sharp. She said, "My parents presented a narrative with no verified support, and she asked the court to rely on Karen Holt report." The judge nodded, because the court does not run on emotion, it runs on evidence. When Karen report was mentioned, I saw Thomas' jaw tighten, because he knew Karen was not impressed by his performance. Karen Holt submitted her report, and it landed like a hammer. She wrote that I appeared fully capable of managing my personal and financial affairs. She wrote that I was employed, organized, and coherent, and that my routine showed stability. She also noted inconsistencies in my parents' claims, including the unreachable statement, the lack of verified medical support, and the unusual focus on gaining control of assets. The report did not call them criminals, but it called their story unconvincing, and that was enough to weaken their case. Thomas Collins responded by calling me again, voice softer, saying he wanted peace. Angela Collins sent a message saying she missed me, and she was worried about stress. Samantha Price advised me not to respond, because sudden tenderness is often a tactic. In court, the judge referenced Karen findings, and the mood changed. My parents' attorney started sounding less confident, and he began suggesting compromise. That word, compromise, made my stomach turn, because it usually means I give up something, so they can save face. Samantha told the judge we were not here to compromise away my autonomy. She said the petition should be dismissed. Thomas looked at me, eyes hard, and for a moment I saw the truth clearly. They did not want me safe. They wanted me owned. After Karen Holt report, Thomas Collins stopped sounding certain and started sounding careful. He told relatives that the court was misunderstanding him, and he said he only wanted to help. Angela Collins began sending gentle messages, saying she loved me and she did not want conflict. The words looked sweet, but the timing made them obvious. Samantha Price reminded me that people who lose control often try to regain it through softness. In the next hearing, their attorney suggested a middle path, something like shared oversight, limited access, or temporary supervision. It was a quieter version of the same demand, control in smaller portions. Samantha stood and said no, because autonomy is not a pie you slice for comfort. She told the judge, Karen Holt, found no basis for conservatorship, and compromise would only reward a false petition. The judge listened and asked my parents why they filed such an extreme request with no verified medical support. Thomas gave a speech about duty and worry, but he still could not name a single real incident. Angela cried again, but tears are not evidence. I sat still, hands folded, breathing slow, because I knew calm looks like competence. When we left the courtroom, Thomas called after me, saying we should talk as a family. Samantha told me to keep walking, because the hallway is where they try to corner you. I kept walking, and for the first time, I felt the case turning in my favor. Samantha Price did not stop at defense. She went on offense. She requested financial disclosures tied to the petition, because motives leave tracks. She asked why my parents were suddenly obsessed with my assets, and she asked the court to require transparency. Karen Holt also asked questions about my parents' situation, because concern usually does not come with a shopping list of possessions. The more documents appeared, the clearer the pattern became. Thomas Collins and Angela Collins were not stable, and they were not acting out of love. Samantha found recent late notices, collection letters, and hints of accounts under pressure. Then one detail hit hard. My parents had listed specific items they wanted control over, including accounts I never discussed with them. That meant they either guessed or they accessed information they should not have. Samantha warned me that identity misuse often hides under family entitlement. She told me to freeze my credit, pull reports, and document every suspicious account. I did it the same day. When I saw unfamiliar activity, my stomach dropped, because my parents' names were close to the trail. Samantha said we would not accuse without proof, but we would not ignore the signs. Karen noted that my parents' petition looked less like care and more like an extraction plan. The case was no longer only about my capacity. It was about what they were trying to steal. At the next hearing, the tone in the room shifted. The judge did not look at me like a question anymore. The judge looked at my parents like a problem. Samantha Price presented Karen Holt conclusions again, then added the new concerns, financial motive, inconsistencies, and the unusual demand for complete control. The judge asked Thomas Collins and Angela Collins if they had any verified medical evidence. They did not. The judge asked about the doctor letter and why the doctor never met me. Their attorney tried to answer, but the answer sounded thin, and the judge was not amused. Samantha explained that conservatorship is a serious restriction of rights, and it cannot be built on family opinion. Karen Holt report supported that, and the judge referenced it directly. Thomas tried to speak, but the judge cut him off and asked why his petition focused so heavily on possessions. Angela started crying again, but the judge asked for facts, not emotion. I watched my parents' faces tighten, because they realized the court was not their audience anymore. It was a filter, and their story was failing. When the judge scheduled the next step, Samantha leaned toward me and said, "We are close, but stay sharp. People who feel exposed sometimes do something reckless." I nodded, because I could feel it too. The mask was slipping, and the truth was about to show its teeth. That night, I did what Samantha Price told me to do, and I pulled my credit reports from every bureau. I expected maybe one mistake, maybe an old address, maybe a typo. Instead, I saw accounts I did not recognize, and balances that did not match my life. There were credit cards opened in my name, with charges I never made, and a loan inquiry that made my stomach drop. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the screen, and the room felt too quiet. I checked dates, and the timeline lined up with the months my parents stopped calling, then suddenly started asking questions about my finances. My hands shook, but I forced myself to stay organized. I printed everything, highlighted what was unfamiliar, and created a list. I called Samantha, and she did not sound surprised. She said family members who feel entitled often treat identity like shared property. She told me to freeze my credit immediately, file disputes, and document every step, because courts respect paper, not panic. I did it all, one task at a time. While I worked, I kept thinking about Thomas Collins and Angela Collins sitting in court, pretending to worry about my stability. They were not worried about me. They were worried about access. When I finished the freezes and the reports, I sat back and breathed, slow and controlled. It hurt to admit it, but the evidence was pointing toward the people who raised me, and if they were willing to take my identity, then the conservatorship petition was not care. It was a legal shortcut to theft. Samantha Price requested additional disclosures, and she framed it in the clean language of the court. She asked for my parents' financial statements, recent debts, and any accounts connected to the petition. She also asked the judge to consider motive, because a conservatorship can become a weapon when the petitioner is desperate. Karen Holt supported that concern, because her report already noted how unusually focused Thomas Collins and Angela Collins were on my possessions. When the court ordered more information, my parents' attorney started pushing back, saying it was irrelevant. The judge disagreed, because when someone demands control over another adult life, the court wants to know why. At the next hearing, Samantha asked direct questions. She asked why my parents needed control of my accounts if their concern was truly my health. She asked why they used a doctor letter from someone who never met me. She asked why they claimed I was unreachable when phone records and messages showed otherwise. Thomas tried to talk over her, then tried to sound offended. Angela cried again, but her tears did not answer the questions. The judge watched them closely, and for the first time, the judge's tone sounded skeptical, not sympathetic. Samantha then presented the early red flags from my credit reports, without making wild accusations, only pointing to facts that required explanation. The courtroom air shifted, because now the issue was not my competence. The issue was whether my parents were misusing the system to take what was not theirs. Karen Holt did not rely only on paperwork. She met with my parents and observed them the way she observed me. Later, she told Samantha that their stories changed depending on the question, and that their concern sounded rehearsed. Karen noted how Thomas Collins kept returning to the same topic: my accounts, my car, my apartment, and what he believed he should manage. Karen also noted that Angela Collins cried often, but offered few concrete examples of me being incapable. When asked for specific incidents, they spoke in generalities, like a vague fog meant to feel convincing. Karen compared that to my records: steady employment, consistent payments, organized documents, and clear communication. The contrast was sharp. Karen also asked them about their own finances, and the answers became defensive. Thomas grew irritated, and Angela went quiet. And Karen wrote that down too. Back in court, Karen's report carried weight because she was independent. She stated that I was capable, and she stated that the petition appeared motivated by asset control rather than genuine need. She did not need dramatic words. She only needed professional clarity. When the judge referenced Karen's findings aloud, I watched my parents' faces tighten. Thomas looked angry, but it was the anger of someone losing a grip. Angela looked startled, like she could not believe tears did not work. Samantha leaned toward me and whispered that we were close to exposing the core. I kept my eyes forward, breathing steady, because I understood the moment. The court was no longer asking if I could manage my life. The court was starting to ask what my parents tried to do with it. The judge ordered financial disclosures, and that order changed everything. Thomas Collins and Angela Collins had acted confident when the case was only about labels. But money requires numbers, and numbers require truth. Samantha Price requested a full accounting, and Karen Holt supported it, because motives often appear in bank statements. In the next hearing, the judge asked my parents why they needed control of my assets, and why they filed such an extreme petition with no verified medical basis. Thomas tried to speak in circles, using words like duty and concern, but the judge asked for specifics, not speeches. Angela cried again, but her tears did not answer the questions. Samantha calmly presented Karen's findings, and she reminded the court that I was employed, organized, and fully capable. Then Samantha introduced the credit red flags, not as drama, but as documented anomalies. The room went quiet in a new way, because now the case was not about whether I could manage my life. It was about whether my parents were misusing the system to take it. Thomas stared at me like I had betrayed him, and I stared back like an adult, because that is what I was. When the judge scheduled the next review, Thomas stood too fast, and his chair scraped the floor. That small sound felt loud because it carried panic. Outside the courtroom, Angela tried to approach me, saying she only wanted to protect me. Samantha stepped between us and said all communication goes through counsel. Angela's face tightened because she was not used to being blocked. We walked out, and I felt my breath deepen. The case was turning, and my parents could feel it. Samantha Price moved like she had done this before, because she had. She subpoenaed what she could, requested what she could not subpoena, and built a timeline that did not rely on anyone's feelings. She asked why Thomas Collins and Angela Collins claimed I was unreachable, while still texting me about family dinners and holiday plans. She asked why their petition listed accounts I never disclosed. She asked the court to require sworn statements, because sworn words carry consequences. Karen Holt added an observation that hit hard. My parents kept returning to my property like it was already theirs. The judge listened, and the judge's tone became colder, because courts recognize patterns. When financial disclosures arrived, the numbers did not look like love. There were late notices, debt pressure, and a trail of desperation. Samantha did not announce it like a headline. She simply placed it in the record and asked the court to consider motive. Thomas tried to blame rising costs, bad luck, and a tough year, but he still could not explain why the solution was controlling my life. Angela said they were only trying to keep me safe, and Samantha asked, "Safe from what? Your daughter's independence?" The judge did not laugh, and that silence felt like judgment. After court, Thomas sent me a message saying we could settle, we could keep this private, we could move on. I did not reply, because private is where they wanted to keep the theft. I went home, locked my door, and organized my documents again. If they wanted to take my identity, my assets, and my autonomy, then I would respond the only way that works, with clean proof and steady boundaries. The shock did not arrive as a scream. It arrived as a total, and that total made my blood run cold. Samantha Price traced the suspicious accounts, the opened credit lines, and the loans connected to my name. Then she connected dates, signatures, and payments, and the pattern became undeniable. The amount tied to the identity misuse climbed past $340,000, and I sat there trying to process what that meant. This was not one mistake, it was a system. Karen Holt interviewed my parents again, and their stories shifted, because lies collapse under detail. Thomas Collins grew angry, then defensive, and Angela Collins went quiet, then cried, then claimed she did not understand. Samantha presented the findings with discipline, because discipline makes truth harder to dodge. The judge asked if my parents disputed the accounts, and their attorney hesitated, because hesitation in court is an answer. Thomas tried to speak, and the judge stopped him and asked for proof, not emotion. Angela whispered that they were trying to survive, and I realized that was the clearest admission she had ever made. They were not trying to protect me, they were trying to use me. When the judge ordered the matter referred for further review, the room shifted again, because now the petition looked like what it was, a weapon. I walked out of the courthouse with Samantha beside me, and I felt grief mixed with relief. Grief for the parents I wanted, and relief that the record was finally louder than their voices. After the hearing, Thomas Collins stopped acting like a hero and started acting like a negotiator. He sent messages saying we should resolve this as a family, and he said court was too harsh and outsiders did not understand us. Angela Collins called with a soft voice, saying she missed me, and she wanted peace, and she did not want me stressed. The sweetness felt staged, because it arrived only after the numbers appeared. Samantha Price told me this is when people offer love as a discount, hoping you will trade truth for comfort. I did not reply to Thomas, and I did not take Angela calls. I forwarded everything to Samantha, because documentation is safer than emotion. Karen Holt also reached out, saying she was finalizing her conclusions, and she needed one more clarification about contact history. I provided it, calmly and fully, because I wanted the record clean. A few days later, Thomas tried a new angle. He sent a message saying he would pay me back, and he said we could make a private plan, and nobody needed to know. The message did not mention autonomy, or apology, or wrongdoing. It only mentioned an exit. Samantha said that offer was not generosity. It was damage control. She said if they truly believed I was incompetent, they would not be offering repayment terms. That contradiction mattered. I sat at my kitchen table, looked at the printed reports again, and felt the grief return, slow and heavy. It is one thing to suspect betrayal. It is another thing to see it totaled in clean lines. Still, grief did not change my next step. I kept moving forward because they chose the court, and the court requires truth. The next hearing was shorter, but it felt sharper. The judge referenced Karen Holt report again and asked why a conservatorship was even requested when the investigation showed I was capable. Samantha Price spoke clearly and said the petition was unsupported and it appeared driven by asset access. The judge then addressed the identity misuse findings, and the room cooled. Thomas Collins tried to speak, but the judge asked him to answer specific questions under oath. Thomas said he did not understand the accounts, and he blamed confusion, and he blamed stress. Angela Collins cried and said she never meant harm, but she did not deny the benefit. Their attorney tried to narrow the conversation, but the judge did not allow it. The judge The court does not exist to hand adults over to petitioners, especially when the petition looks like a weapon. Then the judge stated that the conservatorship request would not proceed, and additional concerns were being referred for further review. Hearing those words felt like a door locking behind me, in a good way. I did not celebrate in the courtroom. I simply breathed, because I was not fighting for a prize. I was fighting for my rights. Outside, Angela tried to approach me again, but Samantha stepped in front and reminded her that contact would go through counsel. Thomas looked at me with hatred and fear mixed together, because he realized he could not grab what he wanted. Karen later told Samantha that the court response was consistent with her findings. I went home that night, and for the first time in weeks, I slept without clenching my jaw. When the case turned against them, my parents tried to make me feel guilty for winning my own freedom. Thomas Collins sent a message saying I was ruining the family name, and he said I would regret choosing strangers over blood. Angela Collins left a voicemail saying she was sick with worry and she begged me to come home and talk. The words sounded like love, but the history sounded like control. Samantha Price advised me to stop taking any direct messages because the next move could be manipulation or retaliation. I changed my passwords, updated my security questions, and put alerts on my accounts. Karen Holt suggested additional precautions too, because families who misuse identity sometimes keep trying, even after they are caught. I followed every step because safety is built through habits. In the quiet moments, grief still hit me. I remembered childhood dinners, holidays, and the illusion that parents protect their child. Then I remembered the petition, the fake evaluation, and the demand for everything I owned. That memory rebuilt my boundary instantly. I told Samantha that I wanted no private settlement that required silence. I wanted the record to stay clear, because silence is what made the theft possible. Samantha agreed, and said clarity is protection. A few days later, I received another message from Thomas, asking for forgiveness, then asking for money in the same breath. That single message contained the entire truth. They did not want reconciliation. They wanted access. I saved it, sent it to Samantha, and blocked the number. I did not feel cruel. I felt honest. I was not their emergency fund, and I was not their legal shortcut. I was a competent adult, and I was keeping what was mine. When the judge required sworn answers, the air in court changed again. Thomas Collins could no longer hide behind speeches, and Angela Collins could no longer cry her way out of details. Samantha Price asked direct questions, and she asked them slowly, so there was no room to pretend confusion. She asked when they first noticed my supposed incapacity, and they could not name a date. She asked what specific incidents proved I could not manage my affairs, and they gave vague stories that did not match records. She asked why they used a doctor letter from someone who never met me, and their attorney tried to redirect. The judge stopped the redirect and asked Thomas to answer clearly. Thomas said he trusted the attorney advice, and he said he only wanted what was best. Samantha asked why what was best required control of my property, and he had no clean answer. Angela whispered that they were under stress, and I watched her hands twist in her lap like she was gripping a secret. Karen Holt sat in the room, observing, and her presence kept the performance from expanding. The judge referenced Karen's findings again and said the petition lacked credible support. Hearing the judge say that out loud felt like gravity returning to the room. My parents' lawyer tried to soften it, saying the petition was a mistake made out of love. Samantha responded that love does not require a takeover, and love does not require false statements. The judge agreed, and my parents' faces tightened. It was the first time I saw them realize that court is not family, and power does not travel well under oath. The decision came in plain language, and it hit harder than any shouting. The judge denied the conservatorship petition because there was no evidence that I lacked capacity, and Karen Holt report supported that conclusion. The judge also stated that the court was concerned about the petition motive, given the extreme focus on assets and the inconsistencies in my parents' claims. Samantha Price sat beside me, calm as stone, and I felt my shoulders drop for the first time in months. Thomas Collins looked stunned, then angry, like he could not accept that a judge did not treat him as an authority. Angela Collins cried, but the tears landed differently now, because the court had already seen the pattern. The judge then mentioned that certain concerns, including identity, misuse, and financial irregularities, would be referred for further review. The room shifted, because referral means the story does not end neatly. My parents' attorney tried to speak, but the judge ended the hearing with a firm tone. When we stepped outside, the hallway felt brighter, like my eyes were finally adjusting to a truth I resisted. Thomas tried to walk toward me, but Samantha stepped in front and said contact must go through counsel. Thomas stared at her, then stared at me, and his expression held one clear message: he believed I belonged to him. I turned away, because I was done arguing with ownership language. I went home, locked my door, and sat in silence. The petition was over, but the truth it revealed was now permanent. Even after the denial, my phone kept lighting up, because my parents wanted a private ending. Angela Collins left voicemails saying she loved me, and she begged me not to involve police. Thomas Collins sent messages calling me ungrateful, then asked if I would help them financially, as if shame and requests could share the same breath. Samantha Price told me to stop listening and to focus on security. She helped me file disputes, create a paper trail, and coordinate next steps with the proper offices. Karen Holt also provided notes that supported the court record, because investigators understand how quickly stories get rewritten. I changed my routines, added account alerts, and kept my doors locked. In quiet moments, grief still showed up, because even when you win, you lose something too. You lose the fantasy that your parents will protect you. But I also gained something: clarity and agency. I went through my documents again, and I labeled each folder petition, reports, credit evidence, messages, and court orders. It felt clinical, but it also felt safe. I realized my parents built their plan on one belief, that I would freeze, fold, and forgive. Instead, I organized, responded, and held my ground. When a relative texted saying I should forgive for the sake of family, I replied once. I said, "Family does not demand your autonomy in court, then call it love." After that, I stopped explaining. My life did not need their approval. It needed protection, and I was finally giving myself that. The denial should have ended it, but my parents did not want an ending. They wanted control of the narrative. Thomas Collins started calling relatives, saying the judge misunderstood, and he said I was being led by Samantha Price. Angela Collins sent long messages about forgiveness, and she wrote about family love. But every message ended with the same request: stop the investigation. Keep it private, do not ruin us. Their fear was not about losing me. It was about losing access and losing face. Samantha told me that when people beg for privacy after a court loss, it often means the record is about to get worse for them. Karen Holt also warned that families who misuse identity sometimes try a final pressure wave, guilt, religious language, and urgent pleas to make you second-guess your boundary. I did not argue with them because arguing creates openings. I forwarded every message to Samantha, and I kept my responses silent. A cousin tried to mediate, saying everyone makes mistakes, and parents deserve grace. I asked one question: would you call it a mistake if a stranger demanded your possessions in court? The cousin stopped replying. That night I sat in my apartment, lights low, breathing slow, and I felt a strange calm. Thomas and Angela believed they could reset the story if they sounded loving enough. But love does not file a petition claiming incapacity, and love does not attach a fake evaluation. I wrote one sentence in my notebook to keep my mind clear. They want quiet, because quiet protected them. Then I slept, because I no longer needed to stay awake, waiting for their next move. Samantha Price helped me take the next steps with discipline, not drama. She said we would treat this like any other fraud case: timelines, reports, disputes, and consistent documentation. She coordinated with agencies that handle identity misuse, and she prepared a clean packet for follow-up review. Karen Holt provided her notes, because her observations supported the court record, and court records matter when investigations expand. I filed disputes on every account I did not open, and I tracked confirmations, case numbers, and dates. I placed alerts on my accounts, changed passwords, and added security checks that my parents could not guess. Each step felt small, but together they built a wall. Thomas Collins sent another message saying he would pay me back if I stopped, and he said we could fix this privately, like it was a personal argument. Samantha said the offer was not repair, it was an attempt to control the outcome. She said repayment without accountability is only another form of theft, because it asks you to trade truth for comfort. I understood that clearly. I was not seeking punishment, but I refused to participate in a cover-up. When a relative asked if I felt guilty, I said guilt belongs to the person who chose harm. I felt grief, not guilt. Grief for the parents I wanted, and grief for the trust I will never have with them again. Still, grief did not weaken my boundary, it strengthened it. Because if they could do this once, they could do it again, unless the record stayed loud. A few weeks later, Karen Holt called with an update, and her voice was steady. She said her work on the court side was complete, but the concerns she documented were now part of a larger file. Samantha Price confirmed that the case had moved beyond a family dispute. That truth should have terrified me, but instead it felt like protection, because the system was finally seeing what I saw. Thomas Collins attempted one last personal approach. He showed up near my building, waiting like he used to wait outside my bedroom door, pretending patience while demanding obedience. I did not go down to meet him. I called Samantha, and she told me to document the attempt and keep distance. Angela Collins left a voicemail, crying softly, saying she was sorry, and she begged me to come home. I listened once, then I stopped, because their tears used to pull me back into the role of fixer. I am not the fixer anymore. I'm a person with rights, and I will not trade those rights for a temporary calm. I focused on my work, my routines, and the quiet things that build stability. Grocery trips, gym sessions, early mornings, and an organized calendar. I also kept a folder, every filing, every message, every report, because safety is not a feeling. It is a system. When people ask why I do not reconcile, I do not give a long speech. I say one clear line. My parents demanded my life in court, and I chose to keep it. Once the court denial was on record, my parents could not pretend they were winning, so they tried to pretend they were misunderstood. Thomas Collins told relatives that I was cruel, and that Samantha Price had filled my head with suspicion. Angela Collins told people she was heartbroken, and she only wanted her daughter safe. But the system does not measure safety by tears. It measures it by fact. Samantha said new information was being reviewed, and she advised me to stay consistent, because consistency is what makes a lie collapse. Karen Holt report, my credit disputes, and the courtroom record were now aligned, and that alignment made it harder for Thomas and Angela to hide. A relative forwarded me a message where Thomas said he never touched my identity, and he never opened any accounts. The problem was, the paperwork did not match his denial. Dates, addresses, and signatures formed a pattern that kept circling back to my parents. The more they denied, the more frantic their denials sounded. Angela tried calling from an unknown number, and she begged me to meet her alone. I refused, because private meetings are where manipulation thrives. Samantha reminded me that regret, without responsibility, is only strategy. I did not hate my parents, but I stopped protecting them. They chose this path, and now they had to face the consequences of choosing it. Samantha Price met with me to review the final arc of the case, and she spoke with blunt kindness. She said the petition was an attempt to strip my rights, and the identity misuse was an attempt to strip my resources. She said, "The combination is not an accident. It is a pattern of entitlement." Karen Holt provided one last written statement for the file, noting that my parents' focus remained fixed on assets, even after I was found competent. The judge record was clear, and the legal system prefers clarity. Samantha advised me to consider protective orders, and to keep my address and routines as private as possible. She also told me to prepare emotionally for the possibility that my parents would blame me publicly, because people who are exposed often try to flip the story. I told Samantha I already felt that, because relatives were suddenly acting like I was the attacker. Samantha said that is common, because it is easier for a family to blame one person than to admit two parents did something unforgivable. Hearing that helped, because it named the pattern without making me feel crazy. Samantha asked what I wanted next, and I said I wanted peace, and I wanted my life fully separated from their reach. Samantha nodded and said, "Peace is built, not begged for." In the end, the biggest moment was not the judge denial, and it was not the number $340,000. The biggest moment was the day I stopped believing I had to fix my parents' feelings. Thomas Collins demanded my autonomy in court, and Angela Collins cried while supporting the demand. They tried to dress control as care, and theft as rescue. Samantha Price and Karen Holt did not give me revenge. They gave me structure, truth, and a path to safety. I rebuilt my security, locked down my identity, and learned to trust the record more than family speeches. Relatives can gossip, and Thomas can claim betrayal, and Angela can claim heartbreak, but none of that changes the facts. I am competent, I am employed, and I am allowed to own my life without permission. I do not need to punish them to protect myself. I only need boundaries that do not bend. Some people will call that cold, because they confuse distance with cruelty. I call it survival. If anyone asks what I learned from all this, I answer with one simple line. When someone takes you to court to own you, love is not the word, control is.